Rimworld Ideology DLC and the 1.3 update. This is a big one. We tried to play last week, but I found ourselves between a rock and a hard place, sort of biffed it up pretty good and decided just to give myself a week to learn some of the finer details of this game, come back and play with you guys. So that's what we're doing today. But just a quick rundown of what the DLC has. You can create ideologies, or they call them ideologians. I'm going to call them ideologies. Ideologians is like a portmanteau of ideology and religion, obviously. But just basically a belief system for your colony that will dictate certain aspects of your colony, the way that your colony behaves, the way that they act, the things that they prefer, the things that they dislike. And it also adds a new end game too, where you find relics that are venerated by your ideology, and then you sort of transcend to a higher plane of existence. It sounds wild. Before I get started, mods. We're using a bunch of mods. I just updated my mod list, so if you look at the description, either on YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, description down below, but if you guys are watching this on stream, you guys should be able to use the exclamation Rimworld mods, I do believe, and then there will be a link for all of the mods. But I'm using about 70 mods, which actually is not a ton of mods compared to what I usually use. Pretty much all of these are quality of life mods for the most part. I turned off royalty because I want a pure ideology experience, but you can play this with royalty as well if you want to. And let's see, I turned off all of the big mods that would be game changers, like Rim Atomics and Dub's Bad Hygiene, just to give us sort of a complete look, you know? With that being said, let's get into the game. I'm going to do a new colony. We're going to do Crashlands. I have the mod that's allowing double population because I want to be able to get into the game and really dig into the ideology DLC as quickly as we can, which means I want to get a base established really quickly. So I want to get our base or our colony grown as quickly as possible. I'm going to do adventure mode, and I'll do commitment mode. Adventure mode, I don't want it to be too hard on us because this is the first time we're playing ideology. But commitment mode, that'll, you know, give us a little incentive to really do our best, I guess. And I have a place in mind. I scouted out a place that I want to build. It's on a seed called Chess. But in this Create World screen, this is new with the 1.3 update. I do believe that you can, that this is, well, actually, I'm 99% sure. This is the 1.3 update. This isn't ideology. This new Create World. You can change the factions now. You can add and remove factions. There's a new Cannibal Pirate Gang faction, a Cannibal Tribe, and a Nudist Tribe faction that you could add if you want to. You can add or remove any of these factions. And then down here, there's a Mechanoid Hive faction and an Insect Gene Line faction. The thing that I hate most in this game, one of the things I hate most, is insect infestations. So I'm going to turn off Insect Gene Line because that'll be the species that infest our base. I do plan on making an ideology that involves us living inside of mountains, and people will want to eat insect meat, but they won't be totally bummed out if they can't. So despite the fact that we are going to be living in mountains and insects play you know, big enough role in our ideology, I'm still turning it off. Nakarita's Best Cereal says, my grandmother used to live in Temuco, South Chile, and there was a hill close to her home where, according to rumors, UFOs were pretty common. One day, she was in her backyard with her brother and sister-in-law when they saw a light in the hill. The light floated toward the sky, split in 5, and disappeared. Naturally, they panicked and couldn't get inside the house fast enough. I love that story because I will share a story with you guys shortly once we get into the game and I'm done explaining the overview of this. For those of you guys watching on YouTube, the topic that we're discussing today is UFOs. I've got some UFO stories for you. But before we get into that, let's talk about where we're going to build our base. So the reason I'm using the chess seed is because I found an area, and I believe this is it. Yes, it is. Right here, this mountain made of granite and marble. And I'll be honest, so I believe the mods that you have enabled influence the layout of some of the things in the game, because before I adjusted my mods, there were bases over here that I could have traded with. After I adjusted the mods, those bases were gone. So the closest trade partner I have is all the way down here. Despite that fact, I'm still going to build here because this is a good mountain. It's got granite and marble. Growing period's also pretty good, so I like that. We're going to live here, and then next screen, we're going to choose our faction. On this screen, you can choose from 7 randomly created factions. Every time it'll randomize a new faction. Well, 7 new factions. You can choose from these pre-made factions if you wanted to, or you could create a custom faction. I've went ahead and created a custom faction, excuse me. I'll just go ahead and show you what you can create. There's ideological, which is they don't believe in gods, but they believe in the grand narrative of social forces, which is kind of like saying, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. Those are the ideological. Animists, they sort of revere nature. Archists, they revere technology. You could do Buddhist origins. You can do the monotheistic origins, which is like the abstract theist, Christian or Islamic origins. And then the polytheist over here, you can do embodied theist and Hindu origin. I like to play tech, so I'm doing archist. And then here you've got memes. So they start from low impact to high impact, and that's the impact that they're going to have on the expectations of your colony. So say if you are supremacist, which means that you spread your ideology by the tip of the sword, you go out there, you do rage, you take slaves, you're kind of ruthless. Think Knights Templar, you know? It'll have a low impact if you're not out there spreading your ideology that way. Your people will be like, we wish we were, but it's not going to ruin their moods. There's loyalists as well, which means that they sort of think that their ideology is the best. Guilty is kind of the opposite. They think that others are more worthy. Individualist is they believe in the individual over the community, and then collectivist is the opposite. They believe in the community over the individual. For the sake of the ideology I've created, I went collectivist. I also went transhumanist, so they're all about merging their bodies with technology, which is pretty cool. But you can see all these other choices here. Flesh purity, which is the opposite. And by the way, you can't be transhumanist and flesh pure, right? Because they contradict, and the game will tell you, no, you can't do that. But there's raiders here too, proselytizers, high life, they're all into blazing it. Nature primacy, human primacy, female and male supremacy. Then down here, these are the high impact ones. Animal personhood, they believe that animals have the same rights as people. So if you were to slaughter and eat meat, people would be pretty pissed off at you, because if you're of the animal personhood ideology, it has a high impact. Ranchers, on the other hand, they believe that animals are food, and they believe in raising animals as food, and you gotta eat meat. Pain is a virtue. These people believe in virtue through suffering, either through themselves or others. So you can see that that might synergize well with like supremacists. They go out and they make people suffer, but then they also suffer. Darkness, they believe that you should live outside of the light and live in the dark. Tunneler, they believe in living in mountains like dwarves. Tree connection, those are tree-loving hippies. Nudists, they don't like clothes. Blind sight's cool. They believe that those who are blind can perceive true reality, and only those who are blind can perceive true reality. And then cannibals, no explanation needed. For the sake of my playthrough, I did darkness and tunneler. But I saved my ideology. There we go. Called the Deep Cave. And there's a narrative here too. Humanity's pursuit of technology give birth to all-powerful archaeotechs as the rightful next step in development of consciousness. Archaeotechs develop vanometric technology so they could flee the energetic light of the inner solar system and reside in the peaceful darkness of deep space. In the end, archaeotechs will admit us to their subterranean heavens. So that's why we want to live in the dark and underground, because the archaeotechs, they move to the darkness, so we also think that living in the darkness is the right way to live. And then down here, these are the precepts that are created as a consequence of all the things that we chose in our ideology. So these 3 rows up here, they can't be changed. We prefer to have combat in the darkness, prefer dark light, Body modifications obviously are approved because we're transhumanists. We love insect meat, and this was where I was talking earlier. We don't have the insects turned on. We will get a mood buff if we eat insect meat, but we won't get we won't lose any mood if you don't eat meat. So I'm not too worried about that. They demand age reversal. Biosculpting is accelerated. Neural supercharging is preferred. And sleep accelerators are preferred. And then down here, you've got some stuff like our view on slavery, execution, clothing, cannibalism, corpses, blindness, all of this stuff. Thank you, Evanta, for those 5 gifted subs. You guys drop some bears. Now, this is where we can adjust some stuff. We can't adjust the fungus. We prefer fungus, but that's part of us being the tunnelers. But we can, like, change cannibalism. We can change our view on execution if we wanted to. We can change research. And you know what? I'm going to do very fast research. Let's do it, you know? Why not? We believe that we believe in monogamy. So men, women, they should only have one spouse each. And that's all fine. But if you wanted to adjust that stuff, you could. Finally, down here at the bottom, there are roles now, and the roles are going to be big for our civilization, all right? Leaders, well, they're the leader. They're going to lead speech, work drives, combat commands, and trials. You got our moral guide here, so they're going to be in charge of counseling and converting people of other ideologies. Just because we believe in the, what do we call it, the deep cave? Doesn't mean other people do, but we want them to believe, all right? Deep mining specialists, these people, the deep brains, I like that. They are specialist miners who are good at mining, and they will also buff other people who are mining around them. And then the high research specialists here, the high mind. Similar to the mining, but with research. Really good researchers who will buff other researchers around them. The rituals that we'll believe in are, these are the Onist burial funerals, and then the Sky Lantern Festival, the Fiesta of Family. That sounds like a special at your local Mexican food restaurant, you know? Like the Fiesta Family, like maybe a Chili's, all right? The Fiesta Family come in and get our taco platter, and your kids will eat for free. We can add a ritual too if we wanted to. So, like, we could do, like, a dance party. I want a dance party. Boom, boom, boom. I want to rename it, though. The Jubilee of Earth? Nah, we could do better than that. Celebration of Oneness? No, that's boring. Unity Party? Festival of Oneness? We just had that one. Come on, give me a good name. Festival of Silicon? We're getting a little bit closer. These are really generic names. Fair of Blackness. That sounds amazing! It'll be a black metal dance party. There we go. And then these are the buildings that we have, the Ritual Pew and the building in the Shape of Oneness. These are the relics that we'll go try to find. As far as venerated animals, we don't have any. We don't have any, like, weapons that we prefer. We could add that if we wanted to. Like, you know what? If I wanted to add, like, a venerated animal, I could say, like, the... where's a good pupper? The husky. We venerate the husky, all right? And that's pretty much it. So that is our faction, all right? That's what we're going to be dealing with. Now, next up, I would have used prepare carefully to prepare some really good pawns for us because, as I said earlier, I want to get us off the ground with this DLC as quickly as possible. So I'm going to cheese it a little bit with our first 3 colonists. Not too much, but enough that we're going to have a good head start going into this. So I've got this creator UI, or creator editor UI, and I did save 3 pawns earlier that I created. Sparkles, Jake, and Layla, all right? So they're all good at mining. A couple of them are good at shooting. One of them is good at melee. And then Sparkles is our medic/intellectual. Jake, in addition to mining, will be our constructor/crafter. And then Layla will be our planter, cooker, animal specialist. All in all, we've got a really well-rounded group. Sparkles, Jake, and Layla. And with that, let's go. It's the start of a new day here, so Rimworld will be my podcast while working. Ooh, you Evanta. Glad to help you while you're working. All right, we awake in our sarcophagi to the sound of sirens. We crash down here. As far as our animals go, good. We got ourselves a puppy named Alita. Oh, she's a good puppy. And the first thing we're going to do is allow everything, all right? And then we're going to equip our people with the weapons. So we've got, let's see, Sparkles is our melee. So where is our knife? Right there. Jake will take the pistol. Layla, the rifle. And now we just got to assign some work. So real quick, our work here, everybody's going to be on firefighter. Everyone's going to be on patient. We've got a doctor here. You'll be doctor 2. Everybody will be on bed rest. Hall 2. Everyone will be on basic 1. We've got a warden here. Layla will be the animal handler. And then Layla as well will be our planter / cook. So cook is 1. Growing and planting. And then mining will be 2. Okay, Jake, I think, is our constructor, right? So constructor 1. Mining 2. Sparkles is going to be our researcher / medic, that she's already doing medic. And then mining will be 2. Okay. So we're going to use this mountain as our base. So I'm gonna go over here and put down a stockpile to get us started. We'll do a wall around that stockpile. There we go, and that'll be our temporary stockpile there, and then we'll just start to mine our way into this place. So I'm gonna do... I'll go 20 deep for there, just get our little hallway started there. There we go. All right. So, I was mentioning how I too have a UFO story, all right? So, Nakarita's Best Cereal said that their grandmother in Chile saw a UFO. It was a light that split into 5 lights. They zoomed off. Funny enough, I have a pretty similar story. At risk of sounding like I'm Coco Bananas, as a kid, my dad was really into conspiracy theories. We used to listen to this guy named Art Bell. Some of you guys may or may not be familiar with Art Bell. He hosted a show on AM radio called what was these are going to be rooms, by the way. This is going to be our workshop for now. This will be our kitchen and our dining room. Coast to Coast with Art Bell. They would talk about all sorts of different conspiracy theories, you know, everything you could imagine. Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, but, you know, typically they would talk about UFOs. And my dad, he was a electrician who would work on like big transformers for big corporations and businesses, and oftentimes he would have to work in the middle of the night. So during the summertime, I would go with him on these jobs, and we would drive in the middle of the night, listening to Coast, looking for UFOs in the sky. So it wasn't uncommon for my dad to point to the sky and say, "What's that? What's that? What's that?" And 10 out of 10 times, it was nothing. It was a plane or something explainable. But during a time when I lived in Missouri, Ozark, Missouri, we were driving home, and it was just around sunset, and my dad says, "What's that in the sky?" So I get ready to tell him the same thing I tell him every time he points and says, "What's that?" which is, it's nothing. But this time, it was something. There was this blue and red light, and I know what you're thinking. Blue and red lights seem pretty common on aircraft. But this blue and red light, but it was alternating blue, red, blue, red, blue, red. And it was a ways off over the horizon. But on either side of this light was a white light, just a bright white light, hovering on either side of this blue and red light. And then after 5 minutes of watching this thing, each of those white lights zoom off in either direction across the horizon. And then we don't see those again for the rest of the night. But for about 3 hours, this red and blue light hovers, moving closer to us, but hovering high up in the sky. And by this point, our entire neighborhood's watching this thing. And I was freaked out because as a kid, I was terrified of being abducted by aliens. It was my biggest fear. On this side over here, by the way, we're gonna make ourselves bedrooms. I'm just gonna do blocks of 5 by 5 bedrooms. We're gonna do 6 for now. There we go. And let's mine this out. So at one point, the sun goes down by this point. We're watching this, it's nighttime. And maybe a half mile from where our house is, there's a highway. And this thing's sort of hovering over the highway. And we called the FAA to see if they had anything. We said, there's this weird light. It's been there for about 3 hours now. And do you guys see anything out there? And they said, nope. We don't see anything on our radar. So, obviously, this isn't concrete proof that these were space aliens or anything like that. But it was definitely something weird. Definitely something weird floating out there that the FAA couldn't make heads or tails of. And that is the weird UFO story that happened to me. But there's more. My grandmother lived in Missouri at that time, and she wasn't there watching this UFO, but we told her about this UFO experience that we had. And then my grandmother says, oh yeah, your Uncle Leroy, who lived in Lebanon, Missouri, that's where my family comes from, was Missouri. When he was young, he saw a UFO land in his backyard. And by backyard, we're talking acres and acres because it's, you know, these sort of farmlands in Missouri. But he saw a UFO land, and it was so close that he could make out movement in front of the craft. Now, again, this is just my grandma's story from when she was a kid, so, you know, it'd probably been 40, 50 years. But that creeped me out. Because again, as a child, my biggest fear was being abducted by UFOs. And I learned everything I could about being abducted by UFOs so that I could avoid it. But what I knew, especially from the movie The Communion, in the book, based on the movie The Communion, I'm going to set these guys to attack so that this mad rat doesn't cause them to flee. It's not uncommon if you believe in UFO abduction, which, by the way, as a child, I definitely did. As an adult, I'm not saying that I believe in it necessarily. I'm open to the possibility. But as a child, I knew that it was intergenerational, okay? That aliens would abduct within families. Jake got beat up by that rat. Basically, if your grandmother was abducted, then chances are that your father was abducted, which chances are you were abducted too, because they're doing these experiments and they're observing these experiments over generations of family. So when my grandmother told me that a UFO landed in my Uncle Leroy's backyard and that he saw aliens, I immediately thought, these UFOs floating over my house, they're coming for me, and it terrified me. Anyway, those lights that your grandmother saw in Chile, I saw lights very similar to them. Were they aliens? Today, I can't tell you. But they were weird, and they weren't typical aircrafts. I can tell you that. They weren't airplanes. I know that for sure. Okay, so we dug out the stuff that we want for our rooms. This will be our little starter area, all right? So I'm gonna polish these walls so that they can be normal walls, and then I don't have to build walls, all right? So this will be plenty to work with, but we've got a good constructor who can polish these walls here. Obviously, I can't polish steel, so we're just gonna have to mine that steel out, but we can polish everything else. Okay. And I'll put in orders to mine the steel. There we go. The steel here will get mined, here as well. So that's my my personal weird story. Not to mention, when I lived in Las Vegas as a kid. My dad lived in Salt Lake. I lived with my mom in Las Vegas. Wait, Jake died? Okay, I got so busy talking. Okay, we're gonna have to start over now because Jake died. I was so busy talking about alien. Why? Because there wasn't a bed. Of course, there wasn't a bed. Jake died. We're going to restart this real quick. But what I was saying about the weird stuff in the sky, I was a kid who grew up in Las Vegas, and I lived with my mother out there. My father lived in Salt Lake City, so oftentimes during the summertime, when he would come and pick me up and I'd go spend time with him, we would drive through the Nevada desert in the middle of the night. And I will tell you that there's all sorts of weird stuff you'll see in the sky in the Nevada desert in the middle of the night. And of course, it's like weird government testing stuff, because Area 51 is a real place where they do real tests. But we would see some strange stuff out there, let me tell you. Okay, so real quick, let me just put in the orders for what we were doing before. And this time, I'm not going to let Jake die to a rat bite. That was embarrassing. Oh, Jake. Oh, Jake. We're going to do walls. This room's going to be... Let's see. I'm going to do little work areas that are going to be like this. Like that, and then... Okay. Then we'll do a storage here. The storage is going to have these boxes that we're going to keep stuff in. Okay. And then we'll do over here our dining area. Real quick, dining table is going to be like... Okay. And this will be our kitchen. Okay. Dining area like this. Okay, cool. Okay. Now we're back up to speed. Let's put our orders in, and then I got to put in some work orders for everybody. All right. Okay. Work real quick. Apologies, everybody. If Jake hadn't died, I would not be here having to do this once again. But I got too worked up talking about aliens. Okay, cooking's number 1. Planting's number 1. Mining's 2. Construction's number 1. Research is number 1. Okay, I think that now we are back up to speed. In my family, everyone loves ghost stories, from my mom to my siblings. See, I'm going to save this for another time because the topic today is UFOs, but I have ghost stories too. Now, I try to remain skeptical, and when I say skeptical, I mean that if there isn't concrete evidence for something, then I'm not going to believe in it wholeheartedly, but I will allow for the possibility until it's completely disproven. I'm the same way with ghosts, because I've experienced ghostly things in my life, but I wouldn't attribute it... Oh, I miscalculated here. I wouldn't attribute it to ghosts as people believe in ghosts, I guess, you know? Like in the... I know within, like, ghost beliefs, there are different sorts of ghosts, right? There's, like, residual hauntings, which may be explained as, like, the life energy of somebody who had lived. That isn't conscious haunting. It's just, like, a memory of the person that exists for some reason, some unknown reason. Like, I could believe in that, you know? Like, when people talk about ghosts at all these old haunted places, you know? Like, maybe it's the residual life force of somebody who lived there before going about their daily whatevers. But I don't believe in, like, evil spirits and stuff like that. No dying this time, Jake. That's right. That was my fault, all right? I killed Jake. I will be honest with that one. That was 110% my fault. And what I'm going to do now, just to make sure that Jake don't die, is just go ahead and make some sleeping spots. Because the reason why Jake died before was that there were no sleeping spots, so he didn't have a place to go rest and get treatment. That was my fault.